People thought Victor Harrington had everything: money, power, a name that opened doors before he even knocked. But there was one door he never opened to anyone, the one behind his office. And that was where Grace Collins worked. Grace wasn't just his secretary. She was the reason his life still worked, the reason meetings started on time, the reason deals didn't fall apart, the reason his worst days never showed on his face. She was married, soft-spoken, beautiful in a warm, comforting way, the kind of woman who made rooms feel calmer just by standing in them. And Victor noticed her more than he should have. It started with small things: a smile held too long, a question asked twice just to hear her voice again. Moments that meant nothing until they meant everything. "Grace," Victor said one evening, "you've already worked late." She looked up from her desk and smiled gently. "I don't mind," she said. "I like finishing things properly." That was Grace, always finishing what she started, even when it cost her. Victor watched her quietly, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear, the way she read his mood without asking. "You should go home," he said again. Grace hesitated. "My husband's not home tonight," she replied softly. "He's been working late too." Something about that sentence settled between them. Not sadness, not relief, but possibility. The office felt smaller, warmer, too quiet. Neither of them moved. "I trust you," Victor said suddenly, more honest than he intended. Grace blinked. "That's a dangerous thing to say to a woman who knows all your secrets." Victor smiled. "I already crossed that line a long time ago." She laughed quietly, but her heart didn't. Outside the office, someone stopped walking. Daniel Price, Victor's business partner, a man who collected weaknesses the way others collected art. He didn't hear everything, but he heard enough. Grace's phone buzzed, a message from her husband. "Did you remember our anniversary?" Her smile faded, just a little. Victor noticed. "Everything okay?" "Yes," she said quickly, then slower. "No." That honesty changed something. "I don't feel seen anymore," Grace whispered. "At home, I'm invisible." Victor stood, carefully, as if sudden movement might shatter her. "You're not invisible here," he said. Their eyes met, and stayed there, too long. That was the moment Grace realized something terrifying. She felt safe, understood, wanted. And it wasn't by her husband. In the hallway, Daniel smiled to himself, because when powerful men fall, it's never because of enemies. It's always because of love. Grace gathered her bag. "I should go," she said. Victor nodded, but neither of them believed it. As she reached the door, Victor spoke again. "Grace." She turned. "This doesn't have to be wrong," he said quietly. Grace swallowed. "That's what scares me." She left, but she took something with her. A truth. And once a truth is felt, it can never be unfelt.
The first secret. Some secrets don't begin with betrayal. They begin with relief. The relief of being seen, of being heard, of being understood without having to explain why you feel empty. Grace Collins felt that relief the moment she stepped back into Victor Harrington's office the next morning. Nothing had changed, and yet everything had. The office looked the same, the glass walls, the quiet hum of the city, the desk that separated them. But the silence between them was no longer empty. It was full, of things neither of them had said. Victor was already there, standing by the window, waiting. "You're early," he said. Grace smiled softly. "I didn't sleep much." Neither had he. They didn't ask each other why. Some questions are too honest for mornings. Victor turned. "There's something I need to show you." He gestured toward his desk. A folder lay there, unmarked, thick. Grace sat slowly, carefully, as if sitting too fast might change what this was becoming. "This isn't company business," Victor said. Grace looked up. "Then why am I seeing it?" "Because I trust you," he replied. Again, trust. That word was becoming dangerous. Grace opened the folder. Financial reports. Names. Transfers that didn't belong where they were. Her brow furrowed. "This isn't clean," she whispered. "No," Victor said quietly. "It isn't." Grace looked at him. "Who else knows?" "No one who should," he replied, "and no one I want to." That was the first secret. Not love, not desire, but protection. Grace closed the folder. "If this comes out—" "I know," Victor interrupted. "I lose everything." Grace inhaled slowly. "And if I help you hide it?" Victor didn't answer immediately, because the truth sat heavy on his tongue. "Then you become part of it," he said, "and I'd never ask that of you." Grace stood, walked to the window. The city looked different from this height, smaller, less forgiving. "I already am part of it," she said softly. "You brought me in." Victor watched her, the curve of her shoulders, the strength behind her calm voice. "I trust you," she continued, "and I don't give that lightly." That was the moment Victor realized something. He wasn't afraid of losing his empire. He was afraid of losing her respect. Across the building, another pair of eyes was watching. Daniel Price stood inside the conference room, phone pressed to his ear, listening. "They're closer," he said quietly. "Much closer." The voice on the other end laughed. "Then wait," the voice said. "People always expose themselves when they think they're safe." Back in the office, Grace's phone buzzed again. Another message, from her husband. "We need to talk tonight." Her chest tightened. Victor noticed. "Is it bad?" he asked gently. Grace nodded. "I think he feels me slipping." Victor stepped closer. Not touching, just closer. "You're allowed to be more than someone's habit," he said. Grace looked at him. Tears didn't fall, but they waited. "No one has ever said that to me," she whispered. Victor didn't smile, didn't speak, because some moments shouldn't be interrupted. Later that evening, Grace stood in her kitchen. Her husband, Michael, sat at the table, scrolling his phone, not looking at her. "You've been distant," he said finally. Grace leaned against the counter. "I've been tired." "From work?" She hesitated. "From being unseen." Michael frowned. "You're overthinking." Grace smiled sadly. "That's what people say when they don't want to listen." Silence filled the room. Thick, uncomfortable. That night, Grace lay awake, thinking of Victor, of trust, of the secret now living between them. Back at his penthouse, Victor poured himself a drink he didn't touch. He stared at the city, wondering when protection turned into attachment. And somewhere else, Daniel Price smiled, because the first secret had already done its work. It had connected them, bound them. And once two people share a secret, they are never strangers again. The lie that felt like love. Some lies don't feel like lies at all. They feel like shelter, like warmth on a cold night, like someone finally standing close enough to notice you're shaking. That was how it began for Grace Collins. Not with touch, not with words she couldn't take back, but with comfort. Victor Harrington became the place her thoughts rested, and that scared her more than anything else. The days grew longer. Meetings blurred together, but the moments between them, those moments felt sharper, clearer. Victor started asking questions that had nothing to do with business. "Did you eat today? You look tired. Are you all right?" No one had asked her those things in a long time. Grace answered carefully, always carefully, because she knew how fragile this was. One afternoon, rain pressed against the windows like impatience. Victor closed the door to his office, not dramatically, just enough to quiet the world. "You don't have to stay," he said. Grace remained standing. "I know." A pause. The rain filled it. "I stay because it's peaceful here," she admitted softly. Victor nodded. "I feel that too." Those words settled deep, too deep. Across the building, Daniel Price noticed the pattern. Late lights, closed doors, conversations that stopped when he entered rooms. He didn't rush. Daniel never rushed. He preferred to let people build their own traps. That evening, Grace arrived home late again. Michael sat on the couch, arms crossed. "You missed dinner," he said. "I texted," Grace replied quietly. "That's not the same as being here." She removed her shoes slowly. Neither of them moved closer. "When was the last time you asked how I was?" Grace asked. Michael frowned. "You're doing this again." "Doing what?" "Making everything dramatic." Grace looked at him, really looked, and realized something painful. He wasn't cruel. He was absent. That night, Grace cried silently in the bathroom, not because she wanted to leave, but because she didn't know how to stay anymore. The next morning, Victor noticed her red eyes. He didn't comment. He simply placed a cup of tea on her desk. "I remembered you don't like coffee when you're overwhelmed," he said. Her breath caught. Because he remembered. That was the lie. The quiet one. That feeling understood meant being chosen. Daniel made his move 2 days later. He invited Grace to lunch. Public place. Bright restaurant. Nothing suspicious. "You're good at what you do," Daniel said pleasantly. "Victor relies on you heavily." Grace stiffened. "He relies on results." Daniel smiled. "Of course," then leaned in slightly. "But reliance has consequences." Grace's chest tightened. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying," Daniel replied calmly, "that when this company stumbles, people look for proximity." Grace swallowed. "I don't understand." Daniel stood. "You will." Back at the office, Victor seemed distracted. Board pressure. Financial questions. Eyes watching him now. Grace felt it too. The shift. The tightening air. That evening, Victor spoke quietly. "Things are changing." Grace nodded. "I know." He hesitated, then said the thing he had promised himself he wouldn't. "If this gets difficult, I don't want you hurt." Grace looked up. "You're already protecting me," she said. "That's what scares me." Their eyes met. Held. No touch. No movement. Just a truth neither wanted to name. From the hallway, Daniel watched through the glass and smiled. Because the strongest betrayals never come from enemies. They come from the moment someone feels safe. That night, Grace stood in front of her mirror. She touched her wedding ring, then let her hand fall. She whispered a question to her reflection. When did comfort start feeling like danger? And somewhere in the city, Victor stood alone again, realizing too late that the lie wasn't the secret. The lie was believing this wouldn't cost them everything.
The rumor. Rumors don't arrive loudly, they come quietly. Through glances that linger a second too long. Through conversations that stop when someone enters the room. Through silence. Grace felt it immediately. The office felt different. Not colder in temperature, but colder in intention. People were watching now. Listening. Measuring. Victor noticed it too. He stopped calling her name so often. Stopped standing too close. Protection, disguised as distance. Daniel sets the trap. Daniel Price never rushed. That was his advantage. He invited Victor to lunch, a public place, clear view, nothing threatening. People talk, Daniel said casually. Victor didn't answer. They talk about loyalty, Daniel continued. About proximity. About risk. Victor lifted his eyes slowly. What exactly are you implying? Daniel smiled. Nothing. Yet. Grace and the file. Later that day, Grace found an envelope on her desk. No name, no note. Inside were copies of confidential documents, the same ones Victor had trusted her with. Her breath caught. Someone else knew. Her phone vibrated. An unknown number. Be careful who you protect. Grace closed her eyes, because secrets don't disappear. They wait. The confrontation at home. That night, Michael was waiting. You're not really here anymore, he said quietly. Grace didn't deny it, didn't defend herself. I feel like I'm losing you, he added. Her chest tightened, because part of her already felt gone. I don't know how to be who you need, she whispered. Michael studied her face, not angrily, not accusingly. Then tell me, he said softly. Who are you now? Grace had no answer. Victor's decision. The next morning, Victor asked Grace to step into his office. The door stayed open. The blinds stayed raised. I'm stepping back, he said carefully. Grace froze. From what? From you, he replied gently. For your safety. Her voice shook. You don't get to decide what hurts me. Victor looked away, because choosing distance felt worse than choosing risk. Daniel moves in. Daniel noticed the space immediately. He always did.
He offered Grace protection, influence, security. "All I need," Daniel said smoothly, "is your cooperation." Grace understood instantly. This wasn't business. It was leverage. "I won't betray him," she said quietly. Daniel smiled. "Everyone does. Eventually." The breaking point. That evening, Grace stood alone on the rooftop. City lights far below. Wind pulling at her coat. Victor found her there. No plan. No announcement. "I was trying to protect you," he said. "I didn't ask for distance," she replied. "I asked to be seen." They stood close, still not touching, because now, touch would change everything. End of part 4. Hook. Below them, Daniel watched from his car, phone in hand, smile ready, because the quiet had finally broken. And when silence ends, choices begin. The moment before everything. Some moments arrive quietly, not with chaos, not with shouting, but with clarity. Grace sat alone in a car, engine off, hands resting in her lap. Her phone lay beside her. Daniel's message unread. Victor's silence louder than any word. This was the moment. The one where choices stopped waiting. Grace's choice. Grace walked into the building after hours. Lights dim, hallways empty. Victor was still there, standing by the window, city stretched behind him. "I won't be part of this," she said softly. "No secrets. No leverage. No games." Victor turned slowly. "You don't owe me anything." "I know," she replied. "That's why I'm here." She handed him the envelope. Everything Daniel wanted. "I choose honesty," Grace said, "even if it costs me comfort." Victor nodded once, respect replacing fear. Daniel loses control. Daniel didn't shout, didn't threaten. He smiled, the kind of smile that comes when someone realizes they've already lost. "You think this ends here?" he asked later. "It ends with truth," Victor replied calmly. "That's enough." Daniel walked away, because power only works when people are afraid, and Grace was no longer afraid. The conversation at home. That night, Grace sat across from Michael. No distance, no distractions. "I've been drifting," she said quietly, "and it wasn't fair to you." Michael listened, really listened. "I didn't feel seen," Grace continued, "but I should have spoken before silence grew." Michael nodded slowly. "We both stopped trying," he admitted. They didn't fix everything that night, but they stopped pretending. And sometimes, that's the beginning. Grace and Victor, one last time. Weeks later, Grace packed her desk. A new role awaited her, a new direction. Victor stood nearby, professional, calm. "I'm proud of you," he said. Grace smiled. "Thank you for seeing me, without trying to keep me." They shared a quiet look. No regret, no longing, just understanding. Some connections aren't meant to last forever. They're meant to change you. The final reflection. Grace walked out of the building into the evening light. Lighter, clearer. Behind her, Victor returned to his work, stronger, wiser. And somewhere between what almost happened and what didn't, they both found what mattered most. Not desire, not secrecy, but self-respect. Final closing. Because love doesn't always mean possession. Sometimes it means choosing the right ending.